put them out on the shelves. And these are some very, very simple exercises. For instance, for little toddlers of 2, pouring is a very important exercise.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they're pouring water all over the place and spilling the water and the jug and the juice. That's because their wrists need development.
Right.
And they have reticular motion that we have.
Mm-hmm.
They have back and forth. So pouring helps them to develop that motion. And they love to pour. Now, you would think that you have to have water for kids to pour. No. You can use red peas, beans,
Mm-hmm.
or smaller beans. And the reason I would use bigger red beans is because some kids put it in their noses. Yeah.
Oh, I went through that.
I went through that with my first child.
It was a peanut.
Yeah, no, we don't want things that can slip down the nostril. We want bigger things, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And you can use plastic jugs, 2 jugs, milk jugs, whatever, and they can pour from one container to the next to their heart's content.
Mm-hmm.
A little we use as well is that when they're pouring from one to the next, if you have a pan,
right,
or a plastic bowl or something that makes a nice noise that isn't irritating to you, fascinates the child longer.
Uh-huh.
Keep pouring all day long. Spoon is another one. So give them a little plastic spoon that they can spoon the things back into the dish. You'd be surprised how long a 2-year-old will sit and do that. And they keep quite occupied.
That I think that's one of the things that I'm happiest about in terms of having the kids home right now is that I don't have little ones. So
right.
I empathize with the moms who have the ones under 2 or 3. Like, my heart goes out to you because that is rough.
But you know the great thing, as I say, with the Montessori classroom with the mixed ages, families have mixed ages.
Mm-hmm.
So you can show the older child how to show the younger child to do something. So another great one for young kids, because of course they like to get messy, is mopping.
Mm.
I have a massive son who, when he was a child, so my middle daughter poured a lot, and she poured a lot. And my son, who was the youngest, used to mop everything. Leave him in the kitchen to mop, and he'd mop the whole floor, and you wouldn't have to clean. But what we do, because children controls, is we take some masking tape, and we mask out a square and cut that mop handle, or make a makeshift mop with a bit of cloth and a stick, and make sure it's short enough for the kid, and tell them that they have to stay in that square. Of course, they'll spill outside of it, but it contains a mess. And they will do that for hours. That's in between. You can't just give them bookwork. That's in the little math or English or counting or whatever you want to give them to do. And it gives you a break for 5 minutes. Because all you have to do is sit and watch them make a mess. It's a controlled mess. And the child is happy. Yeah?
So but apart from the activities, because when we had like our little powwow, like ahead of this, I mean, separate and apart from the homeschooling, what are the added pressures now on mom during this time frame? Because we're balancing the work, or we're balancing the kids, we're balancing a spouse in home all the time now. Yeah.
Yes. And that's why I think you have to have a schedule, and you have to make it known when is your do not disturb time. Yeah? I think we have to be realistic and realize that we cannot work for hours on end if we have small children.
Yeah.
But we can work for 20 minutes at a time. And we can devise lots of do not disturb techniques. Again, I'm going to go back to Montessori because very good training. And one of the things we train children to do, because if you walk into a Montessori classroom and you can see the teacher, that's not a very good classroom. You should disappear into the children.
Okay.
One of the things that we say to the kids, because they're sitting at the same eye level as ourselves, when you want my attention, wait until I look you in the eyes and speak to me. If you're on the phone, so we have to teach our children what we call grace and courtesy. You're on the phone and all you have is like a piece of the dining table. That is now your office.
Right.
In 20 minutes when mommy's at work, Use whatever signal so the child knows this is a do not disturb time. And when they come up to you, they put their hand on you and they wait. And it doesn't take long. If you are consistent, it doesn't take long for the child to know that when you turn around, you're going to give them your full attention. Yeah?
Yeah.
Don't give them a little bit of your attention. Don't be distracted. Give them your full attention and let them know. The other thing that I love is timers.
Mm-hmm.
You know those timers that you use for egg and all kinds of things, even your phone? Say to the child, I can speak to you in 5 minutes. Mommy's going to 5 minutes. And set a 5-minute timer. And when that timer goes off, keep your word. Because consistency will allow the child to develop patience.
That's one of my confessions. Like I sometimes I don't keep my word with the time frames that I set.
Be impeccable with your word. Children do not like it when we break our word.
Yeah.
We have to be very careful of that. They're very literal. Yeah?
Yeah.
And what we have to contend with right now in terms of pressure is that the mom that used to help you and come to your house now has a family she has to take care of. And we have to practice distancing. She has to be home with her kids, so you're left without that kind of help for those people who had the help. And she now has the kids, and as they say, perhaps a spouse, a brother, a niece, a nephew, who knows, in the household. People need to learn to create the distance, a bubble.
Right.
By saying, babe, when I'm doing A, B, or C, I cannot be interrupted. And take it in 20-minute intervals. Be realistic. If you don't have children at home, as I no longer do, then you can take a 1 hour break, a 1 hour stint, 2 hour stint, and then break.
Right.
And when you break, do something meaningful. Create a meal together. Plan what's going to happen with the rest of the day. Because, if you have to go grocery shopping, you have to come in and do that astronaut thing where you take off the shoes and the hat and the dress and start stripping down in the garage. So we're all stripping naked in the garage now. Right? And running into the house, and then we wipe down everything. So if you know that has to happen, you're going to have to budget differently for your time.
Right.
I was driving and I said to somebody, I'll soon talk to you, give me 5 minutes. No, that was the old days. That was 3 weeks ago. So no, that 5 minutes extended to 10 and 15 minutes because I had to clean myself. I had to clean the groceries. I had to change my clothing. You cannot realistically say, I'll talk to you in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm driving in, I just got in, give me 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. Because we have to build in more time into everything we're doing and do less, but do it well.
Yeah.
Because the time that we were
I like that. Doing less, but do it well.
So my motto is do it right the first time. But that's because I'm impatient and I don't like to redo things. Do it right the first time. Give it your full concentration. Get it right up to where you can get in 20 minutes and stop. And that child becomes used, just like the television has trained them.
Right.
Watch for 8 minutes and then break for an advert. We can train them to have our attention every 20 minutes. And there'll become times when they don't need us. Prepare them as much as possible. Break every 20 minutes and give them your attention and say, sweetie, mommy can talk to you now. Is there anything you need? There's a lot children can do for themselves. A lot. And again, because I'm Montessori, when my kids were little, I had a small fridge in our TV room, and their morning snacks were in the fridge from the night before.
Yeah, they can access on their own and
wake me up in the morning.
Yeah.
They went to the refrigerator, and they were different ages, so the older one would be able to say, and everybody has their little container. So they know that I can get their yogurt out or yogurt parfait or whatever, and I can sit and watch their cartoons until I can attend to them. And I can hear them because they're right nearby. So we have to find these little ways. Carrot sticks cut up, little pieces of cucumber, Vienna sausages, whatever you're going to give them, ready for them to use. So we have to be a little bit more planful.
Yeah. What I have found is, because I've been doing this for a while in terms of at least working from home.
Yes.
Granted, the kids weren't here all the time, but I don't stick to the original schedule that I had.
Yes.
So I will try and do my heavy lifting when they're asleep.
Yes.
So any major tasks that I have, I will do them very late at night or extremely early in the morning. And that actually has been my mantra in terms of the tips that I've been giving people is do your heavy lifting when the kids are asleep. It gives you a little time to even sleep in the morning.
So I was, that builds another equation into it, which is if you have tiny kids, sleep when they sleep.
Yeah.
You feel guilty to take that 20-minute nap, which doesn't mean deep sleep, but it is down now. Or to simply go lie down and let your spine relax, watch the news, watch it, whatever you want to watch while the baby's asleep, and give yourself a siesta.
Yeah.
Those little ones have their longest nap. Take a nap yourself. Because one of the things that we can bank quite efficiently now is sleep. A lot of people are telling me they're sleeping better. They're going to bed, they're sleeping longer. And this is a very
interesting.
So let's gain the health benefits from it. Better sleep, quality sleep, more sleep.
Yeah. Because we don't have that commute in the mornings either.
Exactly. We're
not waking up at 5 and getting them ready. And so we've gained a couple of hours technically.
We've gained 3 hours, I would say.
Yeah.
Just not having to drop off kids, pick up kids, run out and get stuff, etc., etc. And so you have to grocery shop every 7 days, 5 to 7 days now.
Yeah.
You actually have more quality time for yourself and for those around you. We can simplify our routines because we're not going into an office.
I heard from an executive recently that she feels almost as if she's going to burn out because she's not accustomed to this in the sense of working from home. So now she's scheduling Zoom calls back to back to back to back.
And that's what's happening. Yeah.
But for me, what I do is I try and block my calls. So, and because I know I'm most productive in the morning, I will focus on my work and my tasks in the morning and then batch my meetings in the afternoon.
And I'll tell you something else that's worked really well, Annika, which I had even before this COVID thing wanted to try with office members, especially when you work flexi hours as I do, is to use other platforms, Yes, Zoom, everybody's using Zoom now.
Yeah.
But also there are things like Team, TEAM, Slack, which I use, SOAC, and there are lots of other apps like that. The beauty of these apps is that when I get up in the morning, I get dressed, and perhaps I don't have to do the full dress up like I'm wearing flip-flops right now, I can confess, right? So I don't have on heels.
Yeah.
I'm dressed in the morning and I get my computer and I log in to Slack. When I log in, my other office members log in too. So we have a routine. We're all on as if we were in the office.
Right.
And when we're in the office, we don't speak to each other constantly. So we ping if someone needs to speak to us, and we actually take lunch times. So I will actually type to them and say, I'm going to take an hour for lunch now, which means I'm not available.
Right.
So we keep a pretty good routine, and at 4:30, if I have to speak to anybody after that, I'm going to find out if you're available. I'm going to apologize profusely because that's outside of office hours.
Right.
So an executive who's used to having an office, office online. The good thing with Slack is that you can bring in all the other apps into things like Slack and Team.
Yeah.
So you can bring in your Skype, bring in your screen sharing through Skype and all the other apps. So for that person, this becomes a real office online.
I think there's also that issue of, I remember when BlackBerry came out.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm showing my age.
I had 1, 2, 3 BlackBerries. And I'm afraid you still have one.
But when BlackBerry came out, it became so easy for people to, you're easily accessible. And then of course, no, it's that's how it is. That's the nature of life. No, even 3 weeks ago, it was like that. But no, it's worse.
And we have to regulate that again.
You have to set some clear boundaries.
It's very stressful to have all the devices going off at the same time. So the method of working for 20 minutes and stopping is also so that you can stop and get up. If you have to cross the room, it helps. If you get up and take your messages in those 5 minutes that you breathe, it helps. Yeah. Kind of that little break between 5 minutes of taking messages and a little time for the kids. But that's when you do it.
Right.
If the place is not burning down, you don't have to respond. And
yeah.
as I divide the things that I do across my devices, I know the thing I have to pay attention to is my office, which is online. Anything that's coming up in WhatsApp and messages and Facebook, it's extraneous because the people I speak to are right there in the office with me. And when I take my lunchtime, I can go check my messages. Or if I see urgent in something, I can say, excuse me, I need to check a message. Yeah? But we have to monitor and regulate those other distractions.
And set some boundaries for ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially with employers now who feel like they should be able to access you all the time.
No, this is why I love those platforms like Team and Slack, because they create that office that we still need to have so that boundaries are in place. And I don't contact my employees after a certain hour.
So my question, so we've gone through a couple of really good tips in terms of how we can maybe set some boundaries, plan a little bit better, especially for the moms.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Plan for the kids, not just for yourself.
Yeah.
You should have a protected environment.
But I'd love to go into the psychological aspect of what we're going through now. So I have a couple of questions for you. So how does this affect the home life dynamics for a single mom, for example, versus a mom with a spouse in the home?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know that a single mom is having a greater difficulty than a mom with a spouse. Because there are 5 things that set off relationships. And we look for these 5 red flags.
Yeah.
How to manage the in-laws. Yeah. Sex, money. How to raise the children. And who does the chores. And those are the 5 big areas that set off a relationship on a good path or a bad path.
Yeah.
How to raise the children and who does the chores becomes an issue in this dispensation where we're isolated with each other. So mommies and daddies may find it more stressful when they're together and we're not agreed that the dishes are piling up, the washing is piling up, and guess what? There's no one else to do it but me and you, and we're used to being in our office. And that's why I say do less, but do it better.
Right.
Take meaningful breaks, and that's how you get those other things done. I'll load the dishwasher, I'll load the washing machine, I'll wash the dishes, I'll cook the meal, the other person helps with the other thing. Nobody enjoys housework unless they're getting rewards for it. It's not fun. Dirty underwear will always be there. Yes, but it has to be done. So if one close the machine, help hang out the clothes. Or put in the dryer for that matter.
I'm getting a question relating to this right now, which says, what are some ways partners can go about asking each other for more support, particularly at this time?
Okay, so this is a new dispensation. And I would say, first and foremost, declutter and pare down. When we had all the help that we needed to have and we're at the office and we thought we're so busy and so productive, a lot of things were going on at our fancy. Pare down to the bare minimum. Yes? And you even want to get paper plates from the supermarket on your next trip and paper cups, depending on how big your family is. Not every meal has to be had out of crockery.
You don't have to walk in here on his ass and saying, Mommy,
yeah,
you need to learn to wait, dude. What's happening? Doing something.
Can I have hot chocolate?
I'm not making you hot chocolate right now. You have to wait. Excuse me.
And tell him how long he has to wait.
For real. You need to give me 25 minutes.
What?
Hello, out.
Sounds like a lot, doesn't it?
Too much.
You heard him?
That's so much. So put a timer. So the next thing is you put a timer.
Go and say it to Alexa, and then you want me to say it? Go and say it to the one in the TV room. Do you want like 100 minutes then? Okay, so go set the timer for 25. Dude, 25.
Or 25.
Well, that's what you're getting. There's like no middle ground right now. Take the 25, go set the timer.
That didn't sound like a negotiation. That sounded like terrorism.
We'll work on that in my next therapy session.
Next one, how to communicate with children. So I had a meeting this morning and the person was online and I said, I need to see your face. And he said, oh no, techies don't usually use face, and nobody in his office was using face. I said, well, I'm a psychologist. And in order for us to have an effective meeting and for us to finish quickly and effectively, I need to see your face because it communicates to me what I need to know. I'm going to ask you to turn on your camera.
Oh.
So he said, okay, but I have to change the background. No, I don't know what was in the background. Around, and he sat down somewhere else and he just had on a t-shirt and stuff. I said, thank you very much. I said, you're going to see how this meeting is going to be made easier by us seeing each other. So that's another thing. We have to get interpersonal. So I negotiated that with him by telling him why it was important to me. And then he said, well, the background, I had to move to another room because the children are home and they're a distraction. I said, no, sir, you are a distraction to the children. Children are just living their life. He said, oh, well, I hope I'm a good distraction. I said, I don't know, but the truth is we are distracting them. They have their own little lives going on, and their lives live on a different time scale. So you heard the 25 minutes response?
I know, it was like the end of the world. But you had mentioned something earlier about it taking 2 weeks for us to basically acclimatize to something. Yes. And the funny thing is we're forgetting that it takes them 2 weeks as well.
And that's the point I was making to him, that you are a distraction to these little children who are not used to seeing you at home. You want to have holidays, you're at work.
Right.
So what are you doing at home? Why are you in our house? So I think we have to take that perspective as well.
Yeah.
People are used to having us around and having us boss them around so much. And at school they have a routine too.
Yeah.
I mean, my sister, she has a young one who's 9 years old, almost 10. And in the first 2 days, he insisted on having his lunch pan packed. And I agree with him. I thoroughly agree.
Yeah.
That every single day, and I tell you why. It gives them a routine.
Yeah.
And it's another 15 to 20 minutes that you get for yourself. Their lunchtime.
Yeah.
Good.
It's a good way to also ration the snacks, because the kids are going through snacks like
no,
crazy.
There's got to be some order. There's children love
them lunch kit.
I believe in it.
Yeah.
Order, but they also need to be told 15 minutes in advance when they're going to do the next thing.
Yeah.
You take a kid to a birthday party, you don't say, come.
Oh, I believe in that, because this one was,
Oh, that would be
I would give him countdowns.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I still do that with simple things too. Yeah.
And that's a great way of momming. And I love the word that you used, momming. So, tell the kid 15 minutes in advance, Jane, in 15 minutes, you're going to have lunch, okay? So whatever you need to pack up in 15 minutes. Sweetie, 10 minutes to lunch. It's 5 minutes to lunch. And that child will learn what 15 minutes is, 10 minutes is, and 5 minutes.
Right.
And their system will get accustomed to those little, reminders.
Those cues, yeah.
Come on, it's a really great way of getting them to negotiate with you.
So on to another question. So how does this sense of isolation affect parents psychologically at this point?
It can be hair-raising. It can be very disturbing, because especially if you count it on the camaraderie of co-workers, for like a joke, for like a relief, to hear what's going on in their life, etc. and we can't run up the phone bill sometimes.
Yeah.
So unless you're texting, yeah, you're not hearing from other people because they can't always call. Well, thank goodness for WhatsApp, which allows us to make a call.
Yeah.
Again, and it also allows us a video call, and obviously you need data for that.
Yeah.
There's not every parent who's able to do that.
Right.
So I think we're gonna have to find some rather ingenious ways of leaving a message for each other, letting somebody know that you passed by. I noticed that when we look at some of the videos from the US, for instance, yesterday I had a cute one with a dog that was taking food from one neighbor to the next. She's on life support, oxygen.
Oh.
And she can't be in contact with anyone.
Right.
And the neighbor shops for her, and the dog has learned a trick of carrying things in his mouth. He brings the list over. She goes and does the shopping. She brings it back, and the dog takes the bread, and then he takes everything in the bag. And he has fun running back and forth, and he gets his exercise, and the neighbor is helped.
Right.
Somebody else going out and shopping and leaving the groceries on the doorstep. So we're gonna have to start doing those kinds of things. If you used to, you don't have the cell phone credit, you don't have Wi-Fi to do anything, you're going to leave something on a person's doorstep, and knock on the door and leave.
Yeah.
And do the same. So we have to learn to be more communal.
Yeah, those acts of service, the love language.
There you go. So we're gonna have to do a little bit more of that, and we're gonna have to build trust. It's a new way of learning trust. Harvey Jr. says business moves at the speed of trust, not of light. We have to learn to be community again, and to trust each other not to take the things from the doorstep when the neighbor leaves it, and trust each other not to infect each other.
Yeah.
Not doing it for me, but doing it for you. These are some ways that moms can escape the isolation. Go and deliver the thing, or leave a note to say what your needs are, and leave.
Right.
Knock on the door and leave. Because the important thing is that you not infect the other person.
Yeah.
So I think we have to learn these kinds of ways now.
So here's another question. So the need for work-life balance is even more essential, as both words have collided for many at this point in time. So what are your recommendations to avoid burnout? So we spoke about making a schedule, but what other recommendations specifically around burnout?
So I tell you, we're returning to basics and in a lot of ways. And one of the first things that occurred to me when I realized that we needed that first quarantine, the self-quarantine, is what would I have done in long summer vacations as a teenager, for instance, an older teenager? What would have interested me? One of the things I remembered is that at home, we always had 1,000 or 1,500 piece jigsaw puzzle.
Wow.
On our table at all times. And anyone who passed the table would work on the puzzle. That was a communal activity. And so it was always there. So I immediately ordered a jigsaw puzzle. An adult jigsaw puzzle. Yeah?
Yeah.
Get up and you do something. Yeah? Get up and water the plants. And incidentally, children love to clean plants. So get some coconut oil and give them. After you water
every leaf.
Every leaf. They love it. And it's so shiny. Yes? Polish things as well. All of that is Montessori. You just give them the container with the oil and a sponge and let them wipe the leaves of the plant. You'll have the most glistening plants in your house, right?
Or blades of grass if you're into that type of labor.
You know what I mean? But we also need to take those breaks. So I ordered a puzzle. Then I ordered an adult coloring book.
I got a few.
And then I thought of what are the things that I haven't done in a long time? Because since you're in the house, you have to do something. Take your breaks at intervals, cut off the workday when it's time to cut off the workday, and give yourself something other than, I'm not trying to ban any company, other than the television and Netflix. You have to get more creative than that now. Yeah? Now is a great time to do those tasks, those house cleaning, tidying tasks that you never got to.
Mm-hmm.
I have 5 generations of photographs.
Wow.
Hundreds, maybe thousands of photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always wanted to organize them back into a family tree.
Mm-hmm.
That's a project I'm giving myself.
Mm-hmm.
I started bottle painting.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So I've done like 5 projects.
I'd like one autograph for me, please.
You may have one.
But you know, one thing I'm now having to remind myself is to go outside.
Oh, yes.
Because my regular up and down or, you know, going on the road, I'm not doing it. I always work from home, but now I'm like, okay, no, you have to go outside, and I'll sit in the sun and just have Seth run around outside or do something.
That 10 o'clock sun is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm doing now is that I'll take a walk, and I make sure I get at least a half an hour to 45 minutes walking in every other day. So I might walk every day, but I have to walk for 45 minutes in the neighborhood at least every other day. And I try to go when nobody's around.
Yeah.
Yes, I don't encounter anyone.
So here's a question and this one will hit home for quite a few moms, and parents. So for parents who work in essential services or are on the front lines in the medical arena, what are your recommended coping mechanisms?
Regrettably, for those people who are in contact with persons who may or may not be carrying the virus, their isolation techniques are different.
Yeah.
They're not self-isolating. And a number of them, in fact, there was a program on today, I was watching it, I think on BBC, of someone in China, a nurse, who actually got infected.
Mm-hmm.
She had been going from the hospital to a separate apartment from her husband and children. But when she got infected, she was deathly afraid of her husband coming near her. And he went and got a suit from the hospital to be able to transport her to the hospital. So it is a reality.
Yeah.
We know that even today we heard on the news that our healthcare workers are afraid of coming in contact with persons with COVID, so they're not doing the testing. So I think we have to get to the point where we're doing what Europe is doing, which is at 7 o'clock in the evening. We have to cap all those healthcare workers, whether virtually or otherwise, who are out there on the front line. So their self-isolation has to be different. And they're likely going to get their support most from their colleagues. Fortunately, many of the healthcare workers in their workplace will have Wi-Fi. And thank God for things like Skype, video, and all the other video means that they can use to reach out to their families. We're going to have to start using those means. Yes? Right. We're going to, Chris Cuomo had to self-isolate because he's got it and his family doesn't.
Yeah, I've seen that one, yeah.
But if you're in the basement or some other space, you can use your video chat to reach out to the family. And again, as I say, you can find means of delivering things to your family to and from. So one of the things I've been doing is that I'm not going unnecessarily to anywhere I have to pick up anything. I'm using a delivery. Yes, but you can do that with your family.
Yeah.
Use the delivery and they leave the things outside. And it stays in the sun outside for several hours before I open and discard the packets outside and then take out the content, which I wipe down and leave.
Yeah.
Yes? So those healthcare workers are going to have to take all of those extra precautions.
Right.
Find ways of finding an intermediary who can go between them and the family. And they know all the precautions to take. But many of them will not be able to go home, Annika. Many of them are going to have to stay in nurses' homes. You know, nurses have hostels.
Yeah.
Many of them are going to have to do that.
And I know even Airbnb now is asking for folks to volunteer their homes for COVID response workers.
Yes.
So whether it be at a cost or discounted or even free, I mean, that's something else that's going into.
And is that happening in Jamaica?
Well, yeah. I mean, I saw it pop up for me as an Airbnb host. But
Yes.
even so, like, there are new protocols that you need to follow as a host. But I mean, coming back to the parents on the front line,
Yes.
and now I'm thinking about the families.
Yes.
How what kind of, how do we communicate with those young kids?
Yeah.
What
Well,
do we say to our kids at this time?
and I saw one of the videos that you had on your Island Mom page on Facebook. I think it was black pepper or something the little
Yeah,
child was putting their finger in.
right.
Well, again, I'm going to go back to my Montessori training. When we start off with kindergartners, 2.5 years in Montessori, we do a little exercise in circle and we use soppy rice, kind of, you know what, Chinese rice is kind of more wet.
Yeah.
It's a very starchy rice, and we make some rice and we take the rice, put it in our hands as the Montessori guide, and we tell the children about germs and how germs are passed on. And then we shake the child's hand, and they look at it and they've got rice in their hand, and they shake the other child's hand. And it soon gets home to them.
Yeah.
Everybody got some of the rice on their hand.
Yeah.
So they get this idea about how when you touch somebody, you're going to get the germ. So soap and water in the circle, and we wash our hands to remove the rice. And we show them that the rice is gone. You need something didactic like that. The little black pepper grains, the wet rice, or anything else that will communicate. Even putty, that little putty. Some of them are quite soft. Anything that when you touch it, it's going to transfer. Because that's what they need to understand. That it's going to transfer. And that's soap and water, and sing the happy birthday song. Make sure you get the thumbs.
Yeah.
Use a nail brush and get under the nails. And kids love water.
True.
So they're not complaining about that.
but from a,
You mean for the healthcare worker?
Well, no, what I'm thinking now is I do think that some kids are also experiencing their own sense of fear. I mean, they express it in a different way. So I'll give you an example. So Seth even had a dream, and in the dream there was an ant. And that was very significant for me because for him, the ant is the smallest thing that he can think of. Yes. And this ant was causing havoc and killing people. And it was the darkest dream I've ever heard him express to me. And he was scared. He woke up crying. And he had a conversation with God in the dream. And I realized at that moment how much he is being affected by the situation. I knew that he was going through something, but we need to start taking into account how this is affecting them on a psychological level.
Absolutely.
So even from the standpoint now of whether we're at home with the kids and we're not an essential worker, but for the essential workers and the responders on the front line, like how do we communicate with our kids, not just necessarily about the germ, but about coping and their own fears at this time?
Well, I think the coping has to be priority one, because once they see that the soap and water gets rid of the germ, then the germ is not as invasive as they imagined. Because one thing that helps us to cope is knowing how to deal with uncertainty. It's, oh my God, suppose I get it. Suppose it's the uncertainty, you know.
Yeah.
What we have to learn is that if you do in fact pick it up, there's a way to get rid of it. Yes?
Yeah.
And picking it up isn't the issue, it's keeping it on you. What would happen if you didn't wash off your hands? What would happen if you had that sticky stuff on you all the time? It would get on your hands, it would get on your shoulder, it would get on your hands, it would get, yeah?
Yeah.
You know how to get rid of it. That's one level of coping. And then the next level is helping them to understand how transmission works, in the sense that if we stay here and we only interact with each other and we stay far enough from a person so that we're not getting it from them, then we should be okay. Now, I know it's not polite to spit, but in this case, I would allow children to spit. Because I think if the child can spit, if you go outside and say, okay, we're going to spit and have them spit, they'll see the projectile. They'll see that their spit doesn't go beyond a certain point, right? And they'll see how far to stay away from the other person.
Okay. So the kid, they need a visual. They need.
Right. They can't get it esoterically. One man in England, in order to explain it to his family, himself and his wife stood up, and then he said, okay, I'm going to lie down. And he lay down on the ground, and then he told his daughter to come where his feet were. And that's how far you had to stay from other people. He measured the same as the distance. He's 6 feet. That needs to be maintained. So he gave her a visual that as tall as daddy is, that's how far away we have to stay with people who are not in our household.
So we got a question here that says, on the same essential workers, how do we explain to kids why their parent who is an essential worker has to self-isolate or work more? And how do we explain that absence?
Okay, so I think essential workers, regrettably, have a lot of practice at being away from their families. Regrettably, part of the job. When you're on call, you're on call. And there's ways about it. What is happening here is that we have a prolonged period of being on call. And that's why I think we have to break the silences and the absences with those things that connect us. The bearer who can, for $350, deliver something to your house.
Right.
Versus $350. Yeah? And you know the precautions to take in packaging, etc., so that you don't transmit it to anybody else. And you make sure your family knows those precautions, such as leaving it outside, getting rid of the packaging, wiping down, and putting it to rest before you open it. So these things make a difference.
You have to shift the love languages.
Yes. Let me tell you, children, it doesn't take much to please them. Honestly, it takes so little to please them. A box of crayons, 2 lollipops, a picture of you. Yes? Doing your job and saying, this is where I am. Yeah? These are things that help kids to understand that you haven't abandoned them. You are somewhere else because you're having to help others.
I think that the love languages is a really good, it's a good framework for kind of figuring out a different way of communicating now, because we don't have the quality time necessarily.
Yes.
I mean, we can experience that in a virtual sense.
Absolutely.
And we don't have the physical touch necessarily. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I miss hugs. I miss physical touch.
So we have to do Wakanda forever.
Release the oxytocin ourselves.
Yeah, hug yourself.
For the moms out there, some self-pleasure is good too.
Self-pleasure is always good. Make sure everything is clean and disinfected so that we're not transmitting anything. But there's so many ways of arriving at that.
Yeah.
Yes, you do have. And the thing is, for the essential worker, touch may be very much missing from family, but they also have the cognitive skills to know that I want my baby to be safe, I want my child to be safe, I want my husband to be safe, I want my partner to be safe, my mom, etc.
Yeah.
They already have made the cognitive sacrifice. And they will have to receive touch in other ways from their co-workers, for instance, who are exposed to the same things as themselves.
Right.
Yeah, so it's challenging. It's a challenging time, and it would be in any circumstance. But you can find little tiny ways of showing that a person is still in our thoughts. Draw a stick man of you doing your nursing. Yes, we can't draw. Or if you can take the picture and send the text. Yeah. The kid would be very, very pleased, because then you're explaining to them mom's job or dad's job or auntie's job is very important right now to Jamaica. And helping other people.
So I just want to go into the comments. There was one question up above, but if anybody has any questions, you can let us know. But here we have, for those younger children who crave attention and are only children, what can we do to ensure their love tanks get topped up in a healthy way?
Okay. So again, I say parents are a distraction to children's lives. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
We are only parents. It's not just that the child is an only child.
Mm-hmm.
We are used to giving all our attention to a child. Just because a child is an only child doesn't mean that they're demanding.
Mm-hmm.
There's 15 personality types, and your child is one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And if your child is very young, they're one of 4 temperaments. So every child has a different temperament. Some children need more attention than others. And if it is that the child is draining your love tank, then you need to set some boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
But if it is that you are ignoring the child, again, intervals work well.
Mm-hmm.
And depending, you know how when they used to teach us about timeout,
Mm-hmm.
a minute for every year?
Yeah.
Okay. So as the child is older, we can work for longer and take our breaks less frequently.
Right.
But for the younger child, we're going to have to take more frequent breaks. That's like small meals very often in the day.
Set this back.
Is it
Time
25 minutes?
Hello.
Hey,
Say hi.
Hi, sweetheart. How are you? Is it 25 minutes?
Time went out?
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's done.
Let us know.
Yes.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Have
All
you
right.
happy toys?
Well done, Seth. Well done.
Yeah, I threatened with, have you packed up your toys? So he's gone.
Yeah. Well, I heard you tell him, do you want 100? Till I one this week, she said she was taking the kids to go swimming.
Mm-hmm. I have no idea what happened.
Something was English. Maybe that's a timer. I think that's Seth's timer. So I said to her very quickly, because I think we might lose it again. I said to her,
we're not live anymore on Facebook though. That's what just happened.
Yes, Facebook timed out.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed that they're shutting down after a while, and I think it's. But we could stop there because Seth did say it was time.
Yeah, he did. He definitely did.
Yeah. So you can extract the top 5 tips.
We'll figure it out.
So I said to her, okay, so the second child came and said, is it 3 o'clock yet? This was like 5 minutes later, right? So I said, do you have a clock in the house, which a lot of people don't have anymore? She said, no. I said, you need to go buy one.
Mm-hmm.
A big old kitchen clock, and get some dots. And put a dot at the 12 and a dot at the 3. And when both arms are in that position, it's 3 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
You can now tell the child, we're going at 3 o'clock.
Right.
Because they can monitor it.
Yeah.
All right. So everything that allows them to take the power into their hands is going to be good.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome. After all
the technical difficulties and all, but thank you so much.
I think because you had set the timer, it actually didn't come on at 8 exactly, but it did come on. I don't know if that's part of it.
I don't know. I'm gonna try and figure it out tomorrow and do another test run ahead of the other calls. But thank you.
You're very welcome. My very, very big pleasure. And give Seth my love and tell him thank him for the 25 minutes.
I will. All right. Take care. MJ, thank you.
No problem.